Right, getting into this one, Mousesports will be on the blue side, remember, for the first 3 games. Then we swap up to Dig if we get there onto the blue side. But for this one, they will be sat on that red team side. So, first ban will be Shen coming out from Mousesports, followed by the quicker Lee's ban, just a meta consideration coming in from Dignitas. Interestingly, ban that first rather than waiting it out, see if Mousesports might want to take that one away. But Rumble will be the next ban from them. Yeah, a lot of focus on individual members from both teams. Mouse looking for that top lane. Team Dignitas looking for the jungle, feeling like that they can chunk through at least the stronger side of Dan's picks. We've seen a lot of junglers. We saw 9 out of 12 games he's played a different jungler. And, you know, they're trying to get rid of as much as they possibly can here. Rek'Sai is available for Dan. That is one of the strongest junglers for him. We've also had no prominence on AD carries early on here either. Rek'Sai is going to be the first pickup here for Mouse. Will be. The final 2 bans, of course, were Wonderware's Gangplank, which we saw him take to Wicked a couple of weeks back, and the Twisted Fate against Sai. We've seen Sankooks pick that one up as well, but as you mentioned, Rek'Sai will be the first pick. So at this point, Sivir and Kalista are both available. Kobe has shown no real propensity for playing Kalista, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that maybe fall a little bit further down the draft. If they do pick it, it's a bit of a change-up here. They also are not having to look for their jungle now, knowing that the Rek'Sai is on the other side. So I would expect perhaps even support and AD carry picked up here. But speaking of, I guess, a champion that was banned against Denial a lot of times, or from Denial against Team Dignitas last week, was the Fizz. So with all of this top lane priority, the Fizz gets let through, and Wonderware picks that up. Yeah, very early into this rotation as well. They'll pick that with the Sivir over the Kalista, so Mouse could potentially pick the Kalista here. Has a good lane against the Sivir, but they're in no rush to do so. Could look for other priorities on their team. And Wonderware has been playing a lot of Fizz from that top lane role, so it's a little surprising that they'd opt for the Gangplank, because although we did see it from Team Dignitas, I know that it's not a champion that, leading up to that set of games, they'd actually practiced in scrims. It was one that they kind of were like, okay, well, it went okay once, let's bring it out, see what we've got, we're down in this game, and it worked out well for them. So that's almost a bit of almost a gift from Mouse to ban that out. I don't know how confident Team Dignitas would have been to pick that up this early on in a series. Yeah, well, we'll have to see how well that early pick Fizz does, as that was a big priority from Dignitas. The next 2 pickups were brought in from Mousesports, which will be the Janna and Victor. Again, the Victor being picked up before the mid lane's being picked up from Dig. And Deficio talked a little bit about how important Janna has been alongside Corki for the Mouse lineup. They still have the option to go Corki later. They didn't have to rush it after the Sivir had been picked up. So I like the Victor takeaway here, because you basically know that Team Dignitas are going to try and last pick Senkook, something safe. And the fact that they don't really have to rush to take anything else, Victor makes a lot of sense right now, because it allows you to see what the rest of the Team Dignitas lineup locks in, and that's a support that we don't really see too much out of Nisbeth. Only one game, but it was a very good game. 4-0 and 11 on that Annie, but this is a team that is going to look to skirmish pretty heavily with Fizz off in a side lane. Oh yeah, lots of skirmishing. We also saw the Gragas pickup, which is no surprise from Obvious coming in here. His big 3 junglers were the Gragas, Rek'Sai's been taken off the table, and Echo throughout the split, and then he'll just opt towards the Gragas in this one. So now just waiting for the response from Mouse. I'm interested to see what Beansu is going to look for. I don't expect him to take the Maokai that he's played a lot. Hecarim is another champion he's played a substantial amount. He's also been one of the players that has played Galio in that top lane, and I say that because although it probably wouldn't be the best matchup in the lane, and oh, it's fallen all the way through. I can't believe we didn't spot this until now. Beansu is an old Aurelia main. Yep. Normally it is banned out against Mouse when you look at the picks and bans phase. I actually am very surprised that wasn't a focus with all of this top lane setup from Mouse. Yeah, that being said, Stress, Beansu over the split has often gone towards the tanks over the carries. It's only in the semi-finals where Mouse really put him towards those carries once again. We saw the Hecarim, a couple other picks from him last week, which did extremely well in that carry role. And Aurelia will just do that again. And as you mentioned, he's been an Aurelia player for the longest time. So, I mean, you can see why it fell through the minds of a lot of people, because we just haven't seen Aurelia from him for such a long time. Yeah, we really haven't. I'm actually
quite surprised that MOUs are making... Well, I'm not surprised they're making a shift because Irelia can stay on her own, Rek'Sai can stay on her own as well over in the side lane. So it goes along with what MOUs have been running. They just haven't been running this particular setup all that much. Final pick coming in for Team Dignitas was Ari, and that was actually played against Mousesports the last time these two met, all the way back in week 3 of the Challenger Series split. So Team Dignitas going very heavily for a skirmish and snowball setup. And the question is on the other side, can MOUs control their lanes and control any kind of skirmishes with the Janna, with the Victor, and try and prevent Team Dignitas from getting on them while Binsu and Dan do work in the side lanes.
Yeah, this is pretty much the bread and butter composition we saw from Dignitas earlier on from their successes, and then we saw Wonderwear move towards the tanks. Now he's going back onto that Fizz, which has been left open, so we'll see how that one works out for him. But yeah, I'm excited to see how both of these teams adapt to this final, because we've seen lots of different changes in their playstyles over the last couple of weeks. Some have been positive, some have been negative, but there you can see Broken Shard and Aniro shaking hands as they head off stage and just have to wait in the wings to watch their teams fight it out on the Rift.
Ooh, I cannot wait to get into this one, Pulse. That's, I guess, some pretty much quintessential team comps coming out from these two. When you look at exactly what they've been playing over the last couple of weeks, a couple of different champions here and there because bans not being let through, but it is what we'd expect from these two teams.
It is what we would expect, but let us know what you think and who you think will storm onto the pro scene today by tweeting at Mousesports with those hashtags MOU win or DEU win, and we'll be seeing who you're backing in-game. But we're about to get into this one. Team Dignitas EU and Mousesports, the first game of this grand final.
And a spot in the 2016 spring split is on the line to replace the Copenhagen Wolves as an LCS team. And, you know, this could be a long series. I don't think... Well, we're not anticipating a sweep. I think if you go back to right at the beginning of the split, you may have been able to argue that Team Dignitas looked like they were going there for certain, but the last 2 to 3 weeks have absolutely shown the opposite. I don't think there's any certainty coming into this matchup.
No, not at all, Stress. These are two entirely different teams from what we saw at the very start of summer, and indeed at the start of spring. Even MOUs changed 3 of their players from spring. Much better result from them in the summer split. Of course, they ended 2-8 in spring and bounced back and are now in the grand finals. So doing very well for themselves. Sedgen and Mountain were those 2 players who have always stuck by each other and still sticking in this team. And in terms of this early game, we're not seeing a whole lot from either of these teams. We're just seeing the wards go down the river, so some neutral vision from both teams. Nothing really standing out in terms of item builds either, but Wonderwear has picked up that Darren's Blade in the top lane. Are we going to see a lane swap? Maybe. Kobe and Nisbet are heading into the top lane, while Wonderwear is prepared to jungle with Obvious for the first couple levels.
So I think when we look at Cedric and Mountain, they've been together for so long that you expect their synergy to be really tip-top when it comes to challenger duo lanes. In this situation, though, they're up against Kobe and Nisbet, who, although they've not been playing together for a very long time, these two actually seem to get a lead just in every single lane. Kobe has been one of the absolute pillars of Team Dignitas. Even when they've been losing, Kobe has been putting up good stats. So I'm interested to see if we end up in a 2v2 setup later on in one of our later games, how that ends up going. But in this setup, it is going to be the lane swaps. This is going to put a lot of pressure down onto the Fizz from Wonderwear. So how does Wonderwear get himself through this early game while still getting farm? Because Irelia did appear up in that top lane and did manage to get the ball rolling a little bit. However, she is going to be zoned away as Nisbeth is coming in through the side, so Binsu is going to get zoned here.
Yeah, that's all he's going to get for now, and that wave is in a very awkward place for him, so we'll see how much he can get in this early game for himself, whereas Wonderwear is jungling with Obvious right now. They able to put a little bit of damage onto Nisbet, but of course he's not going to get a kill here. Maybe able to soften them up for a potential gank, but Mountain is going to go into the top lane, allow Binsu to get some of that farm as it goes under turret. It is pushing towards him, so it will just be a little longer before he can get his hands on that CS.
This is going to be a fairly tough one now for Binsu. He's got to try and sit here, get harassed down by the Annie and the Sivir, and try and get himself through this laning phase. Mountain is coming up to try and assist. He's got to be careful he doesn't run into Wonderwear and Obvious. They can't really get on top of Mountain at this point. A little too tricky an ask. But that is Obvious spotted out on the map. Dan hasn't yet been seen, so you can see how careful Senkux had been playing around in that middle lane. We saw him drop a ward already prepared for the potential camp that could be coming his way.
Yeah, interesting that they put the pressure onto Beansu as a priority in this game. We talked a lot about how Beansu was that team-orientated player for the longest time before going to those carries in recent weeks from what we've seen from him. But I kind of want to look at this mid lane as well, though, because Senkux and Sayo, there's a lot in this mid lane. Sayo, you heard him talking earlier about Senkux and how Senkux is a super strong player, but can be prone to tilting. I was actually talking to Senkux yesterday. I was like, is that going to happen? He was like, no, not going to happen today. Not going to happen today.
Well, I mean, nobody goes, are you going to tilt? And they're like, yes, I'm going to tilt. After game one, I plan on it.
20 minutes into the game.
Oh, dear. But Nisbet taking a lot of damage in this top lane now. Forces out the heal, actually. Here's Dan. Not going to be anything
Dan's gone.
Much more, but it is the flash and the heal used from Team Dignitas up in that top lane. So I'm guessing one of the places they were looking to snowball from would have been that top lane. If you can shut down Beansu and get a player like Senkux ahead with a roam post 6, that's a great setup for Team Dignitas for this game, and it makes Mouse really start to fear pushing up in the side lanes. As yet, they haven't been able to apply that pressure. I'm still waiting another couple of minutes before it actually gets to that point when Senkux can get out of lane, but that'll be an interesting moment, is how do Team Dignitas control the lane against Mouse so that they can go and gank?
That will be the question for the next couple minutes. But for now, it's just these one-on-one lanes, the duo lane and the top lane. Sejun trying to get everything he can so far. There's not a big difference in CS that we can see at the moment, 5 minutes in. You can see the biggest change is in those solo laners, as Wonderware was with obvious. Beansu was in that solo lane, trying to get some of that farm against probably Nisbet. So he's going to be just around 10 CS behind. It's not going to kill him, but it seems like he's able to farm right now, so not too bad in the long run.
Beansu is, however, just under a whole level behind Wonderware. So Wonderware is up in both farm and in CS. So that is one to keep an eye on as this game continues. But this is a patient opening to this game from the lane swap. Yes, it is a little bit more passive, but at the same time, Mouse are just waiting to be able to play their game. Waiting to get Beansu into a solo lane, wait to get Dan out into a solo lane a lot later into the game as well. We're looking at, after about the second or third dragon. That's really when they start opening up on the map. But Team Dignitas are looking to put some pressure down onto this turret, put some damage, and see if they can get anything. Wonderware's going to go aggressive. No ultimate yet, and Mountain is here, so Wonderware knows he has to just back immediately away from that engage.
Yeah, honestly, it felt like he was just trying to harass him more than anything, rather than go for the all-in. He does have the Ignite, of course, but still. Mountain and Dan are here in this bottom lane trying to go for this push, but Obvious did read that and is down there himself, so 2 versus 3, they should be able to hold this turret. It shouldn't be too difficult. But they are paying a lot of respect over to the bot lane from Mouse. Wonderware's trying to get in, put some damage down, trying to get some of this farm. But this push denied a lot of minions from Wonderware.
Yeah, it did. Actually, look at the farm difference between the two now. Wonderware had completely flipped around with Beansu. Senkux,
like 8 or 10 minions there.
Yeah, that was a big loss for Wonderware when it comes to losing under that turret. Senkux manages to find himself a pink ward after having seen Jungler down in the bottom lane, and Team Dignitas will take the time to take out the top tower as well. The problem is here, when the next wave joins from Team Dignitas, where do MOUs put their bottom lane? Do they keep them bottom lane? Do they try and give some of this farm over to Beansu up in the top lane? Looks like that is indeed the plan. So Team Dignitas are going to have to bring their duo lane down to the bottom lane as well. That will give, obviously, both teams now the ability to contest the dragon, as is fairly standard.
It's interesting you said before that MOUs are trying to get to a point where they just play their own game, because MOUs used to be a team which would let the opponent play their own game and just kind of capitalize on those mistakes, whereas Dig was the team where it's like we always had this macro strategy, we would take the dragons, we'd always be set up for them, and if you take that into account, then Dig should win every time. But we haven't seen that from Dig over the last couple of weeks, and Broken Shard was even saying that their macro strategy was what got them ahead in the early weeks, but a lot of teams caught up to them.
Yeah, a lot of teams really did start figuring out Team Dignitas with regards to kind of how their early game played, where you could put the pressure on. We saw them actually fall behind a fair amount, even in some of their wins. Against Overclockers, Team Dignitas fell back and actually had to really dig deep for a comeback in that series. So, it hasn't been the cleanest of splits for Team Dignitas, but this opening is a lot safer. There's been almost no pressure so far onto Senkux. Dan has looked at both the top and bottom lanes in this game so far, and it looks like he wants to come top again. As long as Wonderware doesn't push out, he should be okay here. Dan hasn't come into the lane yet. A lot of heavy trading onto Wonderwear.
Yeah, now he comes in. He's got the flash as well. That's going to be first blood over to Dan very easily, but the Chum the Waters landed. So did the Ignite. He's ticking down, but he's good to go. Mid lane, Sayo maybe less good to go. He flashed over the wall, so the barrel will knock him to safety, but Senkux has the follow-up. Gets him with the Orb of Deception and the Foxfires. Senkux reclaims that kill.
Playing both top and mid from either side of the map. Really nice trade from Beansu onto Wonderwear. I think Wonderwear was kind of anticipating the gank from Dan, and it almost never came. So Wonderwear knew he had to hold on to Playful Trickster to jump away from the Rek'Sai. The problem was he lost all of his health before that had even happened. In the mid lane, nice timing out by Senkux though to jump away, but it's obvious that's caught. He'll have to flash and then body slam through the Dragon Wall. But yeah, Senkux narrowly avoided getting locked up in the gravity field. Got himself over the wall for the kill. And that's a kill onto Senkux Ahri. Last time he played Ahri, it was a massive scoreline, 9-1 and 11 against Mouse. So Mouse know they can't let Senkux get too many kills, but on the same time, if Beansu starts rolling, I'm really excited to see what his Irelia can do.
Yeah, for sure, in the top lane. I actually really like the timing out from Dan in that gank. He very much just waited for Wonderwear to overcommit, because what Wonderwear wanted was just to keep on trading, pop his ultimate on the Irelia, and he knew he would win. But yeah, Dan coming in at the last moment, and at that point, Wonderwear just knew he was pretty dead without flash in the top lane. So Beansu has his wave in a pretty nice place. He'll just be freezing that most likely. Wonderwear will have to go elsewhere for farm. Beansu is already ahead in this lane, so Wonderwear is going to have to try either make a play or try and scrounge for farm in the jungle.
So we're at the 10-minute mark, normally looking at the stats from the entirety of the regular season and the semi-finals. Mouse have been ahead on average at this point. They're slightly down on Team Dignitas. It is about an even game between these two. The turret and the first blood are the big separators here for both teams. Of course, Mouse did get their playoff just a little bit faster. It resulted in first blood. However, first dragon attempt of the game. Mouse have got dragon in about 80% of their games as the first dragon. See if they can get it this time, but Team Dignitas are already there. Would have taken a steal. Absolutely no chance.
They broke that percentage. That has definitely gone down now.
They want to go bot lane.
And on the hunt ultimate use, Cedrin will be preemptively flashing. There's the flash into the Tibbers as well. Cedrin is locked down, and the Chum the Waters comes across. There is no way you're getting out of that, but the kill actually goes over to Nisbet. I think Tibbers and the Aura picked that one up. So the kill, regardless, over to Dignitas on top of the Dragon, and they have the pressure in the bottom lane. The only thing they gave up was in the middle lane as Senkux came down to roam. Yeah,
Team Dignitas, meanwhile, while they did use a lot on that engage, they used the flash, the Tibbers, the ignite, everything, and the Sivir ultimate.
Kitchen sink.
Yeah, they just are trying to get this composition snowballing for themselves, because if they can expand their lead that they got from the turrets, from the kills, they might be able to put Mouse at a position where they'll never be able to split push. However, the problem with that is Beansu has just been solo farming in that top lane. He's basically just frozen it up there for the last couple of minutes and has edged significantly further ahead on CS. I'm just going to take a look and see how far away he is from Triforce. Only on 1600 gold right now, so he still needs a few more minutes before he can look for that Trinity Force. But at that point, they have to start dealing with Beansu.
Yeah, Irelia scales on that Trinity Force very well, and at that point there's very few champions in the game who can deal with that, and Wonderwear most likely will not be able to. Wonderwear right now 60 farm to 94. Despite that start where Beansu was significantly far behind, it was really just a combination of a good push from Mouse in the bottom lane where they're able to deny a lot of the farm from Wonderwear, combined with, of course, their kill in the top lane as well. So Wonderwear around this mid lane. Charm lands onto Dan, but not much more. Wonderwear, his main goal in life is currently warding and chilling out in the jungle of Mouse, but a lot of the Mouse members are in the mid lane. It's not too much going to happen there. In terms of item builds, Senkux has picked up a Luden's Echo as his first item on that Ahri. I was actually very interested in seeing what Dan was going to pick up this game, because last time we saw him picked up the Warriors into Black Cleaver. He still has time for Black Cleaver, but actually no, it wasn't Warriors, it was Cinderhawk. My bad. So
but the Black Cleaver did come out though. And, you know, at the time it was kind of an odd purchase, but we saw the use coming from it. Obvious, no Flash does have the body slam and the ultimate available, but chooses not to commit with it because that Victor is clearing waves out so incredibly fast, and without a charm or a body slam, or a charm or the explosive cast landing onto the Victor, that mid lane is going nowhere. So they're going to have to switch focus up, put the pressure onto Beansu, and see exactly what ticks here. But Beansu is pretty strong still. although hasn't been back to buy yet, so he's edging up on that Trinity Force ever so closely.
Yeah, he's probably just waiting for the exact amount of gold to go back and just get that gigantic power spike. Mid lane though, Sayo clearing away this minion wave with the Death Ray. Sedge's there as well, so Sencook is not going to be able to take this tower today. You can see the damage coming out from the Ludens. But yeah, this so far has been a fairly passive start by both teams, apart from those plays that they made around the Dragon.
Yeah, it has. And this game will start to open up once you know, you can get Nisbeth into the action once his flash is available. It's kind of difficult at times to engage onto a Victor with a Janna there as well. Very difficult to actually catch them out. But Flash Tibbers will do it. If Team Dignitas can get that every time it's available on cooldown and hit it onto the Victor again and again, that's how they'll win these skirmishes. A Stray Charm will do it as well, but far more difficult to actually catch on. And there is a cleanse on Sayo as well, so it's going to have to take a lot of crowd control to actually lock this Victor down and keep him down. We'll see exactly how Team Dignitas can actually load that up, as mid tower is under attack once again. This time no Victor means a lot more damage on it, and that is going to be the tower falling. Yeah, a lot less wave clear means a very dead turret. So mid lane will go over to Team Dignitas EU. The third turret of the game, 3-0 in those. And despite those 3 extra turrets, the gold advantage is not even that big, only 1,000 gold. Binsu was trying to find Wonderwear there, but that's mainly because of a lot of the farm advantage in the top lane. 50 farm at this point, bottom lane is ahead as well, jungle's ahead. And speaking of jungle, you can see Dan has been off in this side lane. He's stalking Cobby for just a moment. This is what we've seen from Dan time and time again on the right side, is just push out in the side lane, cause trouble for your enemy, and try and get that wave management under your control. But this time doesn't opt to go for any kind of aggressive play. He's just going to recall. A little bit of wasted time there, actually, considering how long he spent there for ultimately nothing. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what he was looking for, because he was waiting for him to push out. It's like, I can take him, I can't take him, I'm going to recall. Binsu in the bottom lane takes the ultimate from Wonderwear. Wonderwear decides not to go all in. Trinity Force completed now by Binsu. Most likely the reason why. He has his Ignite as well, so maybe not too unhappy with that. Sencook was starting to roam down as well, did actually pass a ward, so Binsu didn't want to stick around there any longer. Team Dignitas right now, they're a little bit stalled out because it's difficult for them to push down objectives. They have managed to take the first 3 towers pretty quickly in this game. MOUs haven't really looked to be pressuring a tower since the very early onset after that lane swap. We saw a lot of damage pushed up where Fizz lost the wave. But after that, MOUs have been playing this patient game, sitting a little further back, waiting for Team Dignitas to make sketchy engages, and that hasn't happened yet, really. Binsu, oh, he's going to check straight into Cobby, and obvious. He'll flash away instantly, try and get the vision, but that's instantly blue trinketed away, and now it's just a fish in a barrel, and Cobby will be the one to pick him up. Obvious just coming in with the assist there as well. And it's a great timing on this play. You know, it's a fairly straightforward play. Dragon's coming up. Let's look for the pick on the Aurelia that is on her own in the bottom lane. That's how Team Dignitas are going to be able to shut down this Aurelia, considering Wonderwear can't really do it on his own right now. So Team Dignitas now looking for their second Dragon of the game. This is a big, big departure from what we used to from MOUs. They try for the Prey Seeker for a steal, but it's a shot in the dark, really. Sencook's looking for the kill onto Mountain. Great Monsoon knocks him over the wall. I don't think he's got any more Spirit Rush charges, and he'll be good today. Nisbet did also get chunked by Sayo on the way out, so no casualties from either team, but the Dragon did go over for Dignitas 2-0. Dignitas are actually now a couple recalls started, but have been cancelled. Mouse do push down the middle lane to try and get that turret, but as everyone stayed from Dignitas, it doesn't look like that's going to work out for them. Yeah, what this means though is Fizz is going to have to collect the top wave now that they've seen Aurelia down on the bottom side. Both teleports are available though, so if this one does end up opening up into a bigger fight, we will see both top laners arrive, but MOUs have no minion wave in that middle lane anymore, so they're kind of just running around, not able to actually push onto the turret, and Team Dignitas will be able to clear this somewhat quickly with the Ludens there. And you've got an Annie with Tibbers and a stun charged up, so I don't know how well MOUs would be able to dive this once the wave disappears in front of them. See, Binsu is getting alarmingly strong right now. 56 CS ahead of Wonderwear. Every time we look, he just gets further and further ahead. At some point, this is going to be pretty gigantic, and no one can really stop him. So Dig trying to pick up these objectives, getting ahead in gold, making the team stronger, being able to take them in on a head-on engagement seems to be the way it'll take this game. Binsu
pushing down this bottom turret. Trying to do nice and fun, but unfortunately it's hitting the cannon minions, so that's not going to happen.
You can see right now the difficulty that Team Dignitas are going to have with Binsu is they have to commit multiple people to shut down this Aurelia. And with Wonderwear already in the top lane, the real decision there was, do they lose mid turret or do they lose bottom turret? Ultimately, do they maybe end up losing both? Because Aurelia is just going to go back down there and push. And you could see the amount of damage that went onto mid tower as well. So Team Dignitas, it is the outer towers right now that are getting pressured down, pushed down by Mouse. But certainly, they are starting to slow down when it comes to their decision-making around the map. However, Senkux wants a pick for himself.
Senkux is not slowing down, but he whiffs a couple skill shots, and that means he can't go all in onto Sedge, and he'll be backing away with that Spirit Rush. What's the lower mana? Blue has just spawned, so he'll be taking that one away. 19 minutes into the game, almost 20 minutes here. As you mentioned at the 10-minute mark, usually Mouse do have that gold advantage from the lanes. But then at 20 minutes, they're usually behind in terms of gold because they've usually picked up the dragons, and that's where their priority has been. This game, they have 0 dragons, and are still lagging behind the gold.
Right, and the other thing to contrast with that is Team Dignitas in the last 5 games, you saw the stats earlier, down 2,500 gold. This time they're up about 1,000. It's been because it stems from a patient game from Team Dignitas. Now they're looking for picks and setups from Vision. Denied areas from Mouse. The problem is they have not been able to deny a lot of vision in the last couple of minutes, so there hasn't been the opportunity for too many picks. Senkux looked for one on to Cedrian, but didn't quite land the charm, and the Valkyrie put too much distance between the Corki. So if Team Dignitas are going to look to engage, they're really going to have to try and get the 3-man stack here in the middle lane. You've got to somehow get onto the Janna. She has her ultimate available. Very difficult to get through that onto the Victor. So we'll have to see what exactly is the decision-making coming from Team Dignitas. Standing on a ward is not going to be the decision that wins you a place in the LCS.
I mean, I don't think you decide that. It's just like, guys, we're going to silence ward. And, it's just like the tilt thing. I'm gonna tilt this game. That's what I plan to do. Nisbet has picked up the distortion boost, by the way, so looking for those flash tibbers as the primary source of engage from Dignitas. Wonderwear. What's that? Dan is in a side lane and pushing.
He hasn't got a black cleaver yet.
Not yet, Stress.
Not yet. Those ruby crystals could be going anywhere. Top lane, however, Binsu's going back into Dig.
And he's actually going on to Copy. Please don't push the Aurelia into me. Binsu trying to get away now and might just turn around. And I think he can probably still win that one-on-one against Obvious if he turns around. Okay, maybe not. Drunken Rage comes down. Q comes out. He flashes over the wall. Gets an Equilibrium Strike. He might be able to get away, but Nisbet is coming in from the bottom side. Jukes him with the Blade Surge. Oh, gets him with the Body Slam. He's going to go down eventually. Bot lane, jungle versus top lane once again. Wonderwear against Dan this time around. Gets him with the ultimate, but doesn't get him with much else. And that engage will fizzle out. Man,
Binsu is so incredibly strong right now, and it didn't help as you saw that Obvious blasts the Aurelia into the Sivir. And Copy's like, no, please don't, please. This is not what I want right now. I'm a Sivir. Give me the Aurelia from a range where I can just chunk her down with the fat man stood between us.
I'm called a ranged AD carry.
Yeah, it's not exactly the best of ults. I mean, you know, it was...
I mean, usually it would make sense, because you knock him towards the turret.
Don't knock him towards the
dude there who does a lot of damage.
It is completed, Pulse.
What is?
It is done.
Yes!
On the jungler of Dan. The Black Cleaver, second item Rek'Sai, which I still... that pains me to say, but the style that Dan plays, it fits in with what Mao's like to do.
But the interesting thing about this, Stress, is they have Dan as a split pusher. Binsu is a split pusher. They'll be obviously going for a 1-3-1. I'm going to shut up about that because Cedric has been caught out by Senkux in the middle lane. He's taking down from the Ignite. He will heal up just at the very end of that. Sayu maybe also caught out as well. The ultimate whiffs from Obvious, as he did see some flashes out from Mouse at the end of that engagement.
However, Dragon coming up once again. It's another attempt at a pick coming from Team Dignitas right as the Dragon is spawning, and Mouse somewhat play into their hands. Binsu is getting almost faked out a little bit with the Team Dignitas lineup running down. Forces him to back away. Corki is still in base, so they can rush this Dragon down. Is Dan around? He's currently sat on his red buff, and Wonderwear is playing blocker right now. So this should be Dragon 3. and it is Dragon 3 going over to Team Dignitas. Their ability to pick with that extra movement speed just went up.
Yeah, Binsu was looking for maybe an engage there, but opts out of it. The gold is basically dead even right now. The big difference between the two teams are those dragons going over to Dignitas. And as I was talking about before that action happened, obviously they're going to go for a 1-3-1, but we never usually see Mouse take like a smite top laner, which would offset the fact that Dan is just in a side lane.
Right.
And when they're trying to challenge over objectives, which we've seen before, we've seen Mouse try and go for Barons, try and go for Dragons, where Dan is on the opposite side of the map. Alright, he's Rek'Sai, he can Void Rush towards it, but it's not instant. And not having the smite there when you've started the Baron is difficult. And I'm just surprised that they haven't opted towards smite top laners, so they at least offset some of that.
I don't disagree. It's an interesting point because we've seen Mouse multiple times just go, okay, we're doing Baron. And then somehow it's worked out for them because of kind of picks like this.
Welcome to Black Cleaver,
Yep.
Cooks.
That is no ordinary Rek'Sai. That is an angry Black Cleaver queen.
What is this, an M&S advert?
Oh dear. Not a lot of people get that reference, boss, but you know, Mouse are pushing up onto. True. Mouse pushing up onto their third turret of the game, and now they've started to really take the vision and map control away from Team Dignitas. But again, we're always going to see Team Dignitas look for this kind of play. Oh, double Tibbers.
Onto 2, but he gets eviscerated and blown up. Kobe, meanwhile, trying to put the damage onto Sayo, but he'll actually just turn around and run. The Chaos Storm comes down, and Sedrian's closing in from the top side, gets that pincer movement down, meaning Kobe will have to flash away. Wonder where that might be caught, or maybe he's just caught Binsu. Actually, you're not the one I want. I'm going to run away from this, but Dan, he's in the side lane, he's pushing, and he's going to take this turret.
I mean, you know, teams... The top teams in the LCS would look to exploit this jungler split push being done like this, but it is actually fairly difficult to do if you can't get the engage like that with the Sivir ultimate, with the Annie as well. If you can't get on there and get the kills in the rest of the map, then it's difficult to shut down any kind of split push, because that's honestly how you beat a split push dynamic, is you just engage on the main pack, and if 3 are dead, then good luck pushing in a solo lane while the rest of us are taking objectives on the rest of the map. Just very difficult for Team Dignitas to do right now.
I mean, in that situation, Dignitas did everything right. Hard engage onto them, kill them, then take objectives while Dan's just doing whatever in the other lane. I don't think Nisbet expected to get 100 zeroed. Well, that's the biggest problem.
He ran onto a Victor. Who had a lot of damage at the time. I think he may have just about had the Rabadons completed when
I'm not debating the fact he had a lot of damage considering
right.
good zero than Annie.
Okay, he didn't quite have it from what I'm aware. He did have a needlessly large rod and the blasting one. So, I mean, it's a one-way trip for Nisbet. If he does that, he's just going to get disco balled to death with that Chaos Storm. Nope. And suddenly the party's over for Team Dignitas in that kind of setup. But right now, they're looking for more picks. This is going to be... We're basically playing a game from Mouse's side of just which bush a Team Dignitas in right now. That's all they've got to do. It's like hide and... Yeah, it's battleships, pretty much.
You suck my battleship. That's what we're looking for. Down and clearing the top wave here. As always, Nisbet is going to head into this opposing jungle, take down some of these shallow wards, and should be good to go. He's actually standing on top of another one, which he might find, I believe. Yes, he has. And Wonder where it's still farming in the side lane. Interesting enough, he's actually caught up a little onto Binsu. We were looking at like almost a 60-70 CS lead. It's now close to around 40, as a lot of action has happened around Binsu, and he's died a couple times since then as well. He's still very strong, but Wonderware is getting to the point where he's becoming a big blocker for Binsu, and eventually he'll get to a point where he can just stand in front of Binsu and be like, alright bro, come at me, I've got a ton of armor.
At this point though, I can see this game kind of almost hinging... that's a little BM by Binsu. Just to say, hey, I'm going to use my ult just to stop your recall
just
and
to
back away. But hey, I mean, nobody can touch Binsu right now. No one individual person can shut down this Aurelia. And honestly, you know, we talked about it in Picks and Bans, how even we'd kind of omitted the Aurelia in our minds because Binsu hasn't played it in so long.
Yep.
That's the really interesting thing is Binsu, from between it being banned away and not picking it when it's available, we just kind of, and it looks like Team Dignitas just didn't really anticipate having to go up against Binsu's Aurelia, and it is very formidable right now.
I mean, to be fair, he didn't pick it once in semi.
Right.
And also he hasn't been picking carries until the semi-finals, so don't think you can be... I think you can be forgiven on that one for sure. Nisbet pulling down a couple more wards. Dragon is around 50 seconds, so both teams will be looking to set up around that area. Wonder where his teleport will sync up with that timing, so he's happy to be in the top lane for now. He's actually going to go ahead and recall. The farm share will be going over to Senkux in the bottom lane, as he will be slow pushing that one out. And the push continues. It looks like Mouse have gained control over the area, though, quite substantially. Yep.
DEU have to be careful of their flanks when they move into situations like this. Look at how many wards they're leaving behind them. This is a situation where Beansu just appears on a carry in a fight, and there's not a lot that Team Dignitas can do. They don't have, outside of Gragas, they don't have any real disengage to get an Irelia off the backline. It's all about engage, and if they can get Irelia first...
another whiffed ultimate in from Obvious, but they have caught him. This is a lot of resources used on Beansu. They need to get this kill. They get him down. Dan will have to flash away. That's not called the meek, that's an ultimate in from Wonderware. Dan looking for the re-engage. This is 4 versus 5, but there's a lot of members stacked up. Sayo maybe looking for a good engage here with his ultimate. He will be cleansing out of the CC in from Senkux. DEU now have to disengage. There is no Gragas barrel to do so. Everyone's trying to get out on their own right, but Sayo still had his ultimate and he blows up Senkux on the way out. Kobe has been exhausted. Spell shields the knock-up, but he doesn't have a spell shield for the damage. And that is a 3-for-1 over to Mouse.
Team Dignitas used so much on trying to get Beansu down and didn't hit all of it either, so just so many resources we used in trying to shut this Irelia out and then try and kick a fight off, but they never got it. And Mouse were just so much stronger at that point. Mouse have been ahead for the last few minutes, and now their lead is really starting to build and really starting to snowball in Mouse's favor. They've taken away the possibility for an early 5th dragon coming from Team Dignitas, and plays like this are what Team Dignitas are going to have to try and do, but the execution just has to be better than that ult coming from Obvious. Yes, Beansu did flash himself out of that engagement, but you've got to anticipate that that flash is going to be available.
Yeah, and this re-engage from Mouse was really well thought out. Dan has actually done that a couple times now. There's good re-engages, and even 4 versus 5, they just find more kills.
And Sayo still has everything. He just used his cleanse, but now everything is up, from the Chaos Storm to the rest of his damage, and Senkux just absolutely melts. Everything was used by Team Dignitas, and nothing was left in the tank to take this fight. And Mouse, they're going to punish the mistakes of Team Dignitas. That's what we talked about them being so good at doing.
Yeah, Dignitas, all right, they have those 3 dragons, but that's now being stalled out from Mouse, and what Mouse do have is now that gold advantage. They have a big power spike with the Corki, the Irelia, who's actually opted towards the Frozen Mallet this game as well to stick to people. They have an insane amount of damage coming from Sayo, who's essentially just been farming this entire game. Now is 2-1-2 with almost 300 CS under his belt. This is a very strong team from Mouse, but if, again, they can get the pick in the bottom lane, whether they can do that, I'm not so sure. Beansu is being kited around, and that constant damage from Wonderwell will eventually take him out. The 2 carriers were committed to that play. Obvious went to the bottom side of the map as well, and Mouse are just going to make the reaction play onto Baron.
Teleports coming through, though, from Wonderware. Mouse have to respect that the numbers are even right now as Fizz appeared. Yes, Senkux was still on the bottom side. This will now give them a little bit of vision control here, but they may have rushed down mid and may be able to get themselves onto this turret with this minion wave. There is, however, the Victor and the Janne here, so that wave is going to die pretty quickly, and the shield is going to go onto the turret.
Yeah, I think Dignitas need to play the game of don't stack for Victor.
Yeah.
And they'll just disengage here. They do have Kobe's ultimate for disengage. I believe Nisbet as well has the talisman, so they have forms of disengage. They won't help you very much if Victor's already ulted you, but if he's running towards you, can be okay. Obvious as well with his ultimate. So there's a lot of forms of disengage with Dignitas, but most likely we see them blow that at the start of a fight, and then Mouse has chased them down and they have none of that left.
You can see Kobe even opting for the Bilgewater Cutlass right now. Just trying to get anything to kite back.
Yeah.
Is there anything to get away from this Irelia? Please don't, first of all, ult her on me again. That's would not be good. And then second of all, if she ever does start coming towards me, try and get away from her, but that is a very tough task. I mean, he will be able to spell shield. So, you know, there's that little factor coming out from Kobe, but it is a tough task if Irelia gets in on the flank. But the last few minutes, and to be honest, the last 10 minutes of the game from Beansu, he's not been able to get into the backline all that often. He's been focused out very hard by Team Dignitas. You can see he's 1-4-2. So now they have to try and get this split push going once again. Try and get Beansu out on his own and make sure the wards is safe enough for Binsu that he can actually push up and make a difference. Because, you know, if you're in the middle section of the map, in a side lane, and the enemy team is already pushing towards the rest of your team, you're not exactly going to split push fast enough to do all that much.
Yeah, very true. All right, I've seen this situation before, Stress, but maybe Dan feels like he can take on Cobby this time around. He's tracking it. He's going to go in. Gets the tunnel up. It will be spell shielded out by Cobby, and that will be the turnaround for Dan just to back away. Cobby actually uses ultimate there, and Dan used nothing, so that was actually pretty good.
Yeah, Dan's pretty tanky in spite of the, you know, building towards a little bit of damage. Black Cleaver will give him some tank stats. Has Oranduin's available as well for himself, so not too worried about Senkux right now. I expect him to build some extra magic resist a little bit later on top of that Mercury, those Mercury treads. But Nisbeth is recalling on a ward once again. Team Dignitas not finding all of the wards coming out from Mouse despite having 2 upgraded sweepers already.
So kind of going back onto Obvious. Okay, going back onto Obvious. We were looking at him just over the summer split, and he was just by far the best consistent jungler through the entire round robin. Then Kicker showed up and showed him up, but then he never really returned to form after that. And up against Dan, he's doing okay. He has the same scoreline, but he definitely hasn't had the same impact that we've seen him have throughout the round robin into playoffs.
Yeah, and you know, part of it I feel is Dan is looking to get in behind Wonderwear in this bottom lane. Binsu took almost no damage from this trade. Yeah,
Wonderwear doesn't want to be here anymore, but Dan is going to make sure he stays, and he just has to try and trade as Binsu eats him alive. Another kill over to Mouse.
It's a really interesting question about Obvious, because, you know, the jungle meta adapted recently to include Elise, to include a lot more Evelyn. We did see Eve at the beginning of the split as well, but Obvious is kind of just wanted to play Rek'Sai Gragas for a very long time. We haven't seen all that much more out of Obvious. Yeah, he did play Echo and a couple of games of Sejuani back when she was strong. Yeah, 1 game of Sejuani. So hasn't really shown the desire to play much more. And while it's not exactly a problem, it does make the ability to make plays for Team Dignitas in different games a little bit stale, because there's nothing particularly unpredictable. I mean, okay, Dan's on Rek'Sai, but he's playing a split push Rek'Sai. But here go Team Dignitas, a lot used, and they have to back away. Teleport was cancelled.
The fact that these engages are just never really working out from Dig. They always go through the front door as well. They never really look for flanks.
And it's difficult because even if they get a flank, the general ult is going to come out. Victor is, you know, pretty difficult to actually control as well. If you try and run headlong into a Victor, he's just going to lazy you, put the gravity field down, and if somebody manages to somehow get through, Chaos Storm just drops on top of them and they end up falling. So it's very difficult for Team Dignitas to actually secure any kind of engage here without a miracle Flash Tibbers. And even then, cleanse onto Sayo as well. I assume a little bit later on down the line we're going to see a quick Silver Sash come out from Cedrian. Dragon has spawned. Mouse, they're getting chased down by Team Dignitas. That Tibbers whipped.
It didn't land, and it gets dragged into the gravity field. Binsu on the front line did get tagged by the Fizz ultimate. Cobby gets blown up, but he's not down just yet. Wonderwear has been sighted for that Chaos Storm. Down also drops very low. Will be healing out from that Monsoon and his passive. No one actually dies in that engagement, but Dragon will go over to Mouse, and they are maintaining this big momentum swing in this game. Dig are actually trying to react in the middle lane by taking this turret, but they may have just put themselves in enemy territory.
They know it's low, and Senkux has everything up.
And he will jump onto Mountain, but jump immediately out as the gravity field comes down from Sayu. Now they disengage, and he actually gets something away from that. Dan looking for the engage, uses the Void Rush to get to that straight tunnel. But Tibbers is there to block the Prey Seeker, and Dig still get the disengage.
Yeah, they get a consolation prize from that, but they can't all recall here. If they all recall Mouse go Baron straight away, they know that Team Dignitas used a lot in that engage and skirmish, and Mouse is just going to clear it out. Only Wonderwear was able to recall from this because he has the teleport available. And Mouse, they're in no rush to take the Baron because they know Team Dignitas did not all back away. So a little bit slower pace as this game has really opened up. Team Dignitas managing to find themselves at least an objective, but that's the first tower in about 20 minutes for Team Dignitas.
Yeah, that hasn't changed since very early on to the game, since Dignitas got those early towers. But this is both stalled out, and the swing is now gone over to Mouse, and they're only really going to get stronger. Victor does a bunch of damage late game. Irelia, well, Irelia is Irelia. Corki, okay, he's a big mid-game champion, but he has a lot of farm, he has a bunch of kills, and he's picked up that Elixir of Wrath as well. He's doing a lot of damage.
And speaking of a lot of farm, I've been kind of keeping my eyes on Dan's farm throughout this game. He hasn't really been able to farm in the last couple of minutes, so he had about 200 CS as we crossed the 30-minute mark, which for a jungler is significantly higher than what you would expect at this point. Team Dignitas, however, that was the Chaos Storm used from Sayo, trying to catch on to Senkux. Team Dignitas are going to bail out of here. They've left the Baron at 5,000 health, but Irelia is nowhere to be seen. Teleport not quite available for Binsu, so does not result in the objective going down for either team.
And talking about farm as well, Wonderwear has basically equalized top lane. There's only a small difference between them now. He's sat on 3 big items, 2 defensive ones, just like Irelia, plus the Trinity Force. In a one-on-one, of course, Irelia's going to kill him anyway, but underneath tower, I think he can probably just stop the Irelia now in a one-on-one.
They've also been avoiding the one-on-one for a fair amount of time as well. You've seen Wonderwear head to the top lane while Irelia was bottom lane. That really has how the dynamic of this game has played out. The problem with that is Irelia doesn't have an inner tower in front of her in this lane, or neither in the top lane either. So it makes it a lot more difficult for Binsu to stay in the side lane, whereas Wonderwear knows that if he's given enough time, he can end up going for the turret, but the rest of his team is under a little bit of trouble in this mid lane, but they are able to just back away with the Sivir ultimate. Wonderwear did, however, back off.
Yeah, but Sivir ult used for disengage is not really what you want.
Oh.
Obvious, again, that's the... Maybe it's not the third ultimate in a row, but 3 ultimates in this game have definitely whiffed by Obvious.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 was flashed away by, but the other 2, no excuse.
No excuses. Well, I mean, it's tricky because we've not really grown accustomed to Obvious making those kind of individual errors. And speaking of individual errors, Wonderwear
Run away.
going to stop himself from making one as Binsu appears in the lane, and suddenly Wonderwear doesn't seem to wonder where he should go anymore. It's all going back towards his base.
I mean, it was pretty obvious where he should be going in that one.
Stop it. Stop it.
Got him. But yeah, I mean, Obvious has been like, yeah, I'm 1-3-0, I haven't died at all. I mean, what are you talking about, Cubby? You're the 1-2 deaths. Don't know where they came from.
Yes. Barrels from Irelia's back into your teammates. It is, but, you know...
This game in general, I mean, take a step back. What do Mouse have? They have this big gold advantage, 3,000 gold. 40 minutes in, okay, it's not gigantic, but it's still a gold lead. The dragons are basically evened out. It's going to take a long time if we want to see either team hit 5 dragons. So essentially we're coming down to these fights over these objectives, and most likely Baron as well. Dragon will be coming up in around 2 minutes. Dignitas have shown repeatedly that they can't win these fights because they engage and the engage doesn't quite work out, or they get re-engaged upon, and Mal's consistently gotten ahead in these fights. What do Dignitas need to change? Didn't they go for flanks? They just play better?
I mean, the problem is their composition is very difficult to actually, you know, do anything. As we said about how Maus have got this setup, they've got so many comfortable picks for them with the Corki, the Janna, the Victor. It's difficult to engage into that because of the amount of disengage and damage they have when it comes to front-on engages. So somehow they need to create the picks. Somehow you get a charm and are able to set things up. The flash tibbers as well is going to be an option. You know, this kind of almost reminds me of yesterday's series when it comes to how the end of the game was starting to be played out, where, you know, Gamers 2 were struggling to get picks. They were struggling to get engages, and all of a sudden SmittyJ out of nowhere gets a 4-man stun, and that's the game. Yep. That's the kind of setup that Team Dignitas are realistically going to have to look for if they want to take a team fight against Maus and somehow stop Maus from just split pushing them to death. But, you know, Maus haven't got themselves in front of an inhibitor tower yet. They haven't really been threatening around the Baron at all, and neither team is really wanting to make an unforced error at this point, like going for a Baron. We've seen each team attempt it, but as soon as there has been even the first sign of danger, they've both backed away.
Wonderwear in the top lane is recalling. He has the teleport, so does Binsu. Dan has Void Rush as well as a bit of a teleport across the map. Dragon is spawning right about now. Mouse have the positioning over it. They haven't started it just yet. Death Ray comes across. Pretty much every cooldown is available across the board. Could have a big team fight opening up here, Stress.
could do. Where is the Annie? Off at the side, and look at how split MOUs are right now. Almost a perfect just curve or arc. No real single target. Binsu gets ulted.
Well, he gets caught out, but they don't have enough damage just yet. The Monsoon is used for soft disengage midway through this fight, and they have disengaged. The Dragon is now being focused out. It will go over to Obvious. That's the 4th Dragon of the game. Now they have something to play around, and Dignitas will be backing away.
4th Dragon finally chalked up 14 Dignitas. It's the first one they've really had in 12 to 18 minutes at this point. 6 minutes goes on the clock now before MOUs really have to start thinking heavily about this next Dragon fight. MOUs, you know, even though MOUs are still in the lead, they're still going to have to sit back a little here, because if they do get picked off, Team Dignitas are now going to be able to turn towards the Baron, turn towards a turret. So all you got to do is avoid the picks. Sounds easy, but it is difficult. You've just seen Mountain almost get caught out there.
I mean, I'll be honest, it doesn't sound easy either, honestly, in this game.
Avoid the Ari coming out of the
Just don't die.
Simple.
I mean, Obvious and Dan have got the right idea.
I'll be challenger in
this
no
mountain.
time.
Yeah, good luck with that one, Stress. But in this game, Dignitas and MOUs, they're matching each other blow for blow. 44 minutes in, and honestly, this game could not be more even. They're fighting over different things right now, but if we look at how MOUs performed over the split, I mean, they were 4th seed even in playoffs, and they have surprised. They are going toe-to-toe with Dignitas, and this has turned out to be an extremely close final.
For the first time, Binsu says, I don't want this fight with Wonderwear. Wonderwear came back to lane with a Thornmail, by the way, on top of his Frozen Heart. And now a Giant's Belt. And this time, Binsu says, I don't want this trade. They are, however, trading in the bottom lane right now. It's a slow one.
It'll take a while.
It's a slow one.
I think Binsu's edging ahead. Yeah, he's definitely.
No ult from Wonderwear, though. There we go. Nothing actually results from it.
This fight is literally going in slow motion. But that proves the point. Wonderwear still can't 1v1 the Aurelia.
Right. But even I don't think Binsu realistically could have 1v1 Wonderwear down there without Wonderwear making the same mistake he made at the very beginning of this game for First Blood and sitting there. But Cobby is dueling with Dan now. And Dan gets the rough end of that.
Yeah, he goes out of there. Binsu.
That was teleport used.
Yeah, he's looking for the flank coming in. Nisbet will get the stun down, and Binsu just shrugged it off with the Ionian Fervor. Now the teleport coming in and cancelled from Wonderwear.
Yeah,
so he'll be staying in the bottom lane.
Yeah, now Wonderwear gets to shove bottom lane out. Somebody's going to have to go up and absorb the top lane for Team Dignitas, because that is pushing through for MOUs. This will open up the mid lane ever so slightly, but I mean, Senkux can just clear this lane out in front of him. There's pretty much no chance of that minion wave sitting there. So again, MOUs just don't have the pushing power right now to push past Team Dignitas, and Team Dignitas don't have the engage power to punish MOUs for trying.
Yeah, that's essentially what this game has come down to.
Big stalemate.
Yeah, stalemate definitely describes this game well, or at least where we're at right now. 46 minutes in. However, at the end of this stalemate, a lot of people are going to die, and a lot will be taken from it. And we're edging to the point in the game where a one-team fight at 5-0 or something close to that could even just end the game, with the death timers being so late or so long.
Yes.
People being able to push towers so quickly. And
realistically, we're about 3 minutes out from that. Because Team Dignitas are going to go for the Dragon. It would be Dragon 5 for them. Now, do MOUs call their bluff and go to the Dragon, or do MOUs look for Baron? Because a MOUs now with Baron is going to be able to push straight through Team Dignitas. That amount of just sheer damage and survivability in each of the lanes in front of them while doing a 1-3-1 is tough for Team Dignitas to deal with. MOUs are going to start that up. Senkux is on the bottom side of the map as blue buff just spawned.
Oh man, the realization.
Obvious is going to have to go for a steal here. There's 4,000 health left. Obvious goes in very early on here.
Yeah, maybe a little too early, and the Baron will go over to Dan. That was essentially just coming down to who could smite better or who was looking for the burst at the right time. And MOUs with full control over the area with 5 people bursted, and they take the Baron. Dragon in 1 minute 30. Honestly, Dignitas were just caught with their pants down in that play, but now maybe trying to abuse some of the recall timings. But there was nothing really to take in the middle lane. He already took that tower last time. just trying to set up for the Dragon. That's the right play here.
And now MOU's they're just going to set up the 1-3-1 at this point. Dan has his ultimate available. He will likely drop down into the bottom lane. And then Binsu, we saw Wonderwear and Binsu trading very slowly. With this added damage now coming from the Baroned Up minions in front of Wonderwear, it is not going to be such a simple task anymore. And he's actually gone down to the bottom lane to push it out. So that's going to deter MOU's ever so slightly, and actually won't get the bottom lane in control for MOU's before this Dragon fight potentially kicks off. However, if Wonderwear is not on top of Binsu to prevent him taking down this top tower, that's going to be at least an inhib tower for the Dragon trade. Binsu wants to go with a trade. Wonderwear's taking a lot of damage, but Nisbeth is up here as well.
His minions are not dying very quickly.
No. Fizz doesn't exactly have a lot of wave clear.
That's also true. Unless he just wants to E into the Arena, which usually doesn't work out too well. This cannon minion is a boss. He's on approximately 5 HP and is sieging away at this turret.
Obvious has his ult, has flash available. He's looking for the flank. Can he get into the backline? If he gets Victor...
That's a good ultimate. Binsu wants to get into his team, but this time they have the lockdown. They immediately destroy Sayo, and now Dignitas are on the chase. They have all of this engaged to use, and they take out Binsu as well. The two big carries from MOU's are down. The Dragon is spawning in one, and Dignitas should be able to secure Aspect.
Very well worked engage onto the Victor with no cleanse. Died before he could get his flash off, and as you said, the 5th Dragon is up for Team Dignitas. Dan would have to have a Hail Mary, but he's not in position in time, and that is Team Dignitas now with the 5th Dragon in their possession. Aspect of the Dragon has become active.
It has, and MOU's picked up the Baron. Dignitas had the 5 aspects. Even heard Jat on PTL talk about the very few times teams have come back against Aspect. There's not been many threats.
No.
But MOU's, they have the tools to do so in this one.
So look at this engage. It's a fairly clean cut. One Sayo is the key for MOU's in all of these fights. The CC layering there was just enough so that Sayo couldn't flash away, and from there it's an easy team fight to clean up. Both of the damage threats were down. Teleport is coming through onto the inhibitor turret. This is going to die very quickly.
The tower dies. The inhib will be going down as well. Dignitas, they'll be pulling away from this. We will not be pushing into the base and going a little too ham. Sayo and Binsu are just now respawning. They may be able to take an exit tower in the bottom lane.
Don't say that very often.
Exit tower.
Casual exit tower.
Let's take their inner turret. All right. And now they'll be backing off. All right. Clearing this minion wave also on the way up. That is something that happens a little more often. There's a lot of farm on both of these teams, but it has essentially gotten to this point where a one-team fight will end the game either way. But 5 Dragons over to Dig, that's something that MOU's have to play around for the next couple of minutes.
And MOU's, with their Baron buff, get it stalled out. There was no real way of MOU's actually utilizing it any better than they did, because Wonderway goes to the bottom lane, clears it out, pushes it into the MOU's lineup, and they know they have a timer, because if they don't at least push Team Dignitas back into their base before that Dragon spawns, it becomes very difficult to control them if they're out on the map. And Obvious managed to get himself into his own jungle and set up that play. So MOU's thought that they'd done their due diligence about it, but did not account for the Gragas being off the map for quite so long. So now Team Dignitas have run down that timer and are looking to turn things up against MOU's once again.
This is so close. Wonderwear in the top lane, taking away this farm. Pretty much every member from both teams is now converging onto the top lane. We'll be trying to siege down this inner turret. I'm not entirely sure if MOU's want to try and save that.
They've got a Victor. Yeah, that is a large stack in front of them, though. There goes the engage.
Obvious goes for the engage and takes out Sayo. That is so incredibly big for Dignitas EU here. And the Righteous Glory will pop at the very end. That is all of their wave clear gone, essentially.
And that's the problem with their Victor as they continue to engage. Victor had to step forward to try and clear the wave out, and it was an easy pickoff for Obvious with a flash into the ultimate.
MOU's are just in tatters. Dignitas still have Aspect, and they are pushing down the front door. They may even go for the win here. Nisbet flashes forwards, looks for the flash stun, doesn't quite get it. Binsu's in the back lines trying to take down Sencooks. He finds him, and Sejin is trying to juke away. He'll flash away from Wonderwear. Binsu might fall. He'll be Valkyring back to his turret, but now Wonderwear turns his attention back to this turret. The minions are closing in, but everyone is getting their health back from the fountain. Dan now coming in to try and save his Nexus, but it's not going to happen. Dignitas finished out the first game in his best of 5.
That was a close game between these two. A lot of that game relied on objectives. Only 19 kills overall in a 53-minute game. It was back and forth. Team Dignitas looking strong early game. Mouse dug in deep to close the gap between themselves, but it's Team Dignitas that come out with a win in the end from Dragons.
That stalled for a long time, but when it got to breaking point, it really got to breaking point. A lot of action happened at the very end of that game, and Dignitas closed it out. That was a very long one. I think we were looking at 52 minutes for our very first of this game, and it was exceptionally close all the way through.
Well, we were expecting a close series between these two.
Get any closer than that?
No, that was a really tight game between these two. I mean, it stems from the 5 dragons, or the 3 dragons that Team Dignitas accrued early. Then they managed to get a couple more picks as the game went on. Just managed to punish Mouse time and time again, just for stepping ever so slightly out. And then the play in the mid lane where Mouse had Baron just before 5th dragon, that was a game-winning play from Obvious there. Get the ult onto the Victor, no cleanse for the Tibbers that follows, and man, that was a good setup to a fight, but Team Dignitas tried that so many times and whiffed.
Yeah, so many times, but it just takes one at the late game where they can just close it out, win that team fight. As you saw, that was 2 times in a row where they picked off Sayo and just able to close out the game. Anyway, for a closer look at Team Dignitas' Game 1 win, we're going to send it back